Imagine every plane, ship, and phone suddenly losing its map. Not because of a storm, but because someone flipped a switch. Pilots staring at blank navigation screens. Cargo ships drifting off course. Farmers' tractors losing centimeter-accurate guidance. Traders on a floor watching clocks misfire. That's not a sci-fi scene. It's exactly the kind of risk a country faces when it lets another nation control the system that tells the world where everything is. Last month, Iran announced it will stop using US GPS across many critical services and move to China's BeiDou system. On the surface, it sounds like a technical swap. But underneath, it's a story about security, dependence, and who controls the invisible infrastructure of our daily lives. In this video, I'll walk you through why this move matters. We'll rewind to how GPS became the heartbeat of modern systems, look at the incidents that pushed Iran to act, dig into what BeiDou actually offers, and then unpack the political and practical fallout of a country switching GPS off. By the end, you'll understand whether this is a symbolic gesture or a strategic game changer. First, let's rewind and see how GPS went from a military project to the invisible backbone of the modern world. To understand why Iran's switch matters, we need to realize just how deep GPS runs in modern life. Most people think of it as just a navigation tool for Google Maps or car directions. But GPS, the global positioning system, is much more than that. It's the hidden timing network that keeps the entire global economy running. GPS was created by the US military in the 1970s, mainly for navigation and targeting. By the early 1990s, it became publicly accessible, and within a decade, it turned into a foundation for almost every modern system, from shipping to telecommunications to banking. For example, when you send money online, the transaction time has to be perfectly synchronized down to the millisecond. Cell towers also rely on GPS signals to stay in sync so your calls don't drop. Even power grids use it to balance electricity flow between regions. So when a country uses GPS, it's not just borrowing a map service. It's depending on an American military system to keep its critical infrastructure running. And that's where the tension begins. Because GPS isn't neutral. It's owned and operated by the US Department of Defense. In times of war or conflict, the US can technically restrict or distort GPS access in specific regions, something it has already done in the past during military operations. For countries that have had rocky relations with Washington, that's a huge vulnerability. It means your missiles, ships, planes, and even financial systems could be disrupted at the flip of a switch in another country. That's why nations like Russia, the EU, India, and China have all spent years developing their own satellite navigation systems, GLONASS, Galileo, Navic, and BeiDou, to reduce their dependence on GPS. And now Iran is joining that shift. But why now? What made Tehran decide to finally move away from GPS after decades of using it? Let's explore the turning point that pushed them to make this bold move. Section 3. The Turning Point. Why Iran finally switched. Iran's decision didn't come out of nowhere. It's the result of years of technological tension, military pressure, and strategic isolation. To understand the timing, we have to look at how GPS has been used as a geopolitical lever. Over the past decade, Iran has been under waves of US sanctions, cyber attacks, and trade restrictions. These measures have targeted everything from its oil exports to its access to advanced technology. But one of the less discussed vulnerabilities has always been GPS reliance. During regional conflicts, reports surfaced that Iran's military and drones were experiencing signal jamming and spoofing, where GPS coordinates were distorted, causing systems to malfunction or lose accuracy. A key incident happened in 2011, when Iran captured a US RQ-170 Sentinel stealth drone intact. Iranian officials claimed they hacked the drone's GPS signals, forcing it to land. The US dismissed it as luck or malfunction, but the event exposed how critical GPS manipulation could be in warfare. Since then, Iranian defense planners have been obsessed with building independence from foreign-controlled systems, and GPS sat right at the center of that strategy. Then came the rise of China's BeiDou system, which reached full global coverage in 2020. BeiDou isn't just a rival to GPS, it's a direct alternative, capable of offering the same precision, but with added features like encrypted messaging between users, which is ideal for military coordination. And most importantly, it's not under US control. So when Iran saw China offering a stable military-grade navigation system integrated with its growing trade network, from the Belt and Road Initiative to energy and tech deals, the opportunity was clear. Switching to BeiDou wasn't just a tech upgrade, it was a strategic alignment, part of Iran's deepening partnership with Beijing. But what exactly makes BeiDou different from GPS? And why are so many countries beginning to trust it? Let's break down how BeiDou works and what advantages it gives Iran. Section 4. Inside BeiDou, China's answer to GPS. BeiDou, officially called the BeiDou Navigation Satellite System, or BDS, is China's version of GPS, but it's more than just a clone. It's the result of over 2 decades of development, billions in funding, and one clear goal: to make China and its partners independent from US satellite control. Here's how it works in simple terms. GPS uses a network of 31 satellites orbiting Earth, all controlled by the US military. BeiDou, meanwhile, operates with over 40 satellites managed by China's People's Liberation Army. Both systems broadcast signals that allow devices to pinpoint location and time with extreme precision, down to centimeters when combined with ground-based systems. But BeiDou has several unique features that go beyond what GPS currently offers. Two-way communication. BeiDou isn't just about receiving signals. It can send short, encrypted messages back to the satellite. That means users, like ships or military units, can send their position or distress messages even when other communication lines are cut off. Regional accuracy. In Asia, BeiDou can achieve even higher accuracy than GPS, especially with its network of ground stations across partner countries. Civil and military integration. While GPS clearly separates civilian and military signals, BeiDou was designed from the start to support both, giving China and its partners a dual-use advantage. For Iran, this is a game changer. Imagine a military drone operating in the Persian Gulf. Under GPS, there's always the risk of jamming or signal loss. Under BeiDou, that drone can navigate using a secure, encrypted Chinese signal outside of US interference. And this shift isn't limited to defense. Iran's transport ministry announced plans to integrate BeiDou into domestic aviation, agriculture, and IoT systems, areas that rely heavily on precise location data. Tractors can use BeiDou to plant crops in straight lines. Delivery fleets can optimize routes. Telecom towers can synchronize networks, all without touching a US satellite. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. By adopting BeiDou, Iran isn't just upgrading technology. It's stepping into China's expanding digital ecosystem, where navigation, communication, and surveillance are increasingly linked. So the real question becomes, is this just a technical switch or a step toward a new global bloc built around Chinese infrastructure? That's what we'll explore next. Section 5. The bigger picture. A digital alliance in motion. Iran's adoption of BeiDou isn't happening in isolation. It's part of a much larger geopolitical and technological realignment. To see what's really happening, we need to look at how China has been quietly building a global digital ecosystem parallel to the US-led one. Think of it this way. For decades, the world's digital backbone, from navigation and payment systems to internet infrastructure, has been dominated by Western technologies. GPS, SWIFT, Visa, MasterCard, and even major cloud services all trace their control back to the US and its allies. But China is now building a parallel system, one that includes its own satellites, payment networks, data cables, and tech standards. BeiDou is one of the cornerstones of this system. It already spans over 165 countries, especially those involved in the Belt and Road Initiative, China's massive global infrastructure program. In many of these nations, BeiDou-equipped devices are now mandatory for shipping, rail logistics, and even city management systems. By adopting BeiDou, Iran is effectively plugging into that network. It's not just getting access to navigation data, it's aligning its digital future with China's orbit. This connection strengthens both countries. For Iran, it means reduced vulnerability to Western sanctions and greater autonomy in its tech infrastructure. For China, it means another strategic partner in the Middle East, one that can expand BeiDou's reach across a region critical for global energy and trade. This digital partnership fits perfectly into their broader cooperation: energy deals, military exercises, and technology transfers. China has already invested billions in Iran's 5G networks, oil fields, and smart city projects, all of which can integrate BeiDou's precise location data. In other words, Iran's switch is not just about navigation, it's about choosing sides in the next era of global technology competition. And the West is watching closely, because if more countries follow Iran's path, the dominance of US GPS and the soft power it provides could start to erode. But what does this mean for ordinary people and businesses, both in Iran and around the world? Let's dive into the practical implications next. How this change could ripple through daily life, industries, and even international trade. Now that Iran is moving from GPS to BeiDou, the effects will ripple far beyond military or government systems. This change will gradually touch everyday life, from how farmers grow food to how cargo moves through ports. Let's start with transportation. Iran's domestic aviation and shipping industries depend heavily on satellite navigation for routing, safety, and coordination. By using BeiDou, Iran's planes and ships will rely on signals managed from China instead of the United States. That gives Tehran more confidence that its navigation won't suddenly be disrupted by foreign interference, a serious concern in past regional conflicts. Next, agriculture. Modern farming equipment increasingly uses precision agriculture, where tractors, harvesters, and drones are guided by satellite coordinates accurate to within centimeters. BeiDou provides this same high precision, especially across Asia and the Middle East, where its regional coverage is strongest. This means Iranian farmers could see smoother automation and potentially better yields, all without relying on a system tied to US oversight. Then there's the Internet of Things, smart devices, sensors, and logistics trackers that rely on exact timing and positioning. Iran's smart city initiatives, traffic management systems, and even telecom networks all require that GPS-level synchronization. Replacing it with BeiDou means these systems can continue functioning and expanding independently of US networks. But this change also affects international trade. As Iran integrates more deeply into China's belt and road routes, from rail corridors to ports, using the same navigation system ensures smoother coordination. Freight trains from China to Tehran, for example, can now operate on one continuous tracking system, improving efficiency and reducing the risk of signal mismatches at borders. In short, this isn't just a matter of technology, it's about sovereignty and economic connectivity. Iran gains more control over its digital and physical movement, while China gains another reliable hub along its expanding Eurasian network. Still, this transformation won't come without challenges. Switching an entire nation's navigation backbone is complex, and it raises new dependencies, even as it reduces others. So the next question is, what are the risks? What vulnerabilities come with relying on China's BeiDou system? And could this new independence bring new forms of dependence? That's what we'll uncover next. Every move toward independence carries its own set of trade-offs, and Iran's switch to BeiDou is no exception. While it frees Tehran from US control over GPS, it also ties the country's digital infrastructure more closely to China, creating a new layer of strategic dependence. Let's start with the technical risks. Integrating BeiDou across Iran's national systems means rewriting software, replacing GPS chips, and training thousands of engineers. This transition will take years and cost billions. Any error during the process, even small mismatches between GPS-based and BeiDou-based systems, could cause disruptions in air travel, telecom synchronization, or shipping logistics. Then there's the cybersecurity concern. BeiDou is operated by the People's Liberation Army, and while it offers encrypted signals, that encryption is controlled by Beijing. In theory, that gives China deep visibility into any system using BeiDou, including Iran's critical networks. In practice, that means Tehran is exchanging U.S. oversight for Chinese oversight. It's a different gatekeeper, but still a gatekeeper. Another issue is technology lock-in. Once Iran's industries, defense systems, and IoT infrastructure are fully aligned with BeiDou, switching back or adopting a multi-system approach becomes difficult and expensive. It's the same problem many countries faced after decades of depending on US GPS. When one country's system underpins your economy, their decisions affect your sovereignty. Finally, there's the geopolitical dimension. The more nations adopt BeiDou, the more influence China gains over global standards and data flows. For Iran, that means joining a network where Beijing ultimately sets the rules. And while this may help Iran bypass Western sanctions, it also risks giving China unprecedented leverage, from trade negotiations to data sharing. So yes, Iran is breaking free from one chain, but it's fastening itself to another. The question now becomes, how will this shift change global power balance? Because if Iran's move inspires others to follow, we could be witnessing the start of a new digital divide, one with enormous implications for the world's navigation, communication, and security systems. Let's look next at how other nations are reacting, and whether the world might soon split into two rival satellite networks. Iran's move is more than a local story. It's a signal that the world might be entering a new phase of technological fragmentation. For decades, GPS served as the global standard, a shared, universal system that everyone used regardless of politics. But that's changing fast. Today, the world is splitting into two navigation blocks, one led by the United States and its allies, and the other by China and its partners. And each side is racing to expand its sphere of influence through technology, infrastructure, and policy. China's BeiDou system already covers over 165 countries, many of which are part of the Belt and Road Initiative. Nations in Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia are adopting BeiDou-compatible systems for ports, logistics, and city management. For many of them, it's not just about geopolitics, it's about practicality. Chinese companies provide affordable devices, training, and infrastructure packages bundled with BeiDou integration, making it an easy choice for developing nations. Meanwhile, the United States and Europe are trying to maintain dominance through GPS and Galileo, offering technical precision and political transparency. But Western systems often come with stricter export rules and fewer direct investment incentives compared to China's all-inclusive approach. So what we're witnessing is a digital bifurcation, the splitting of the planet's invisible architecture. One side aligned with Western technologies, the other increasingly with Chinese ones. Iran's decision fits neatly into that pattern. It's a political message disguised as a technical upgrade. We no longer want to depend on Western systems that can be weaponized against us. And for China, every country that adopts BeiDou strengthens its claim as a global technology leader, not just in satellites, but in telecommunications, AI, and cybersecurity. If this continues, the future could look like two competing digital ecosystems. A ship sailing from Shanghai to Rotterdam might need dual systems to ensure it can navigate both zones. The same could apply to smartphones, autonomous cars, and even stock exchanges, all requiring compatibility across rival infrastructures. In short, the fight for global navigation isn't about satellites anymore. It's about who writes the code that the world runs on. And with Iran's switch, China has just won another ally in that battle. So what does this mean for the future? Not just for Iran or China, but for all of us living in an increasingly divided digital world? Let's wrap up with what this shift tells us about where global power is heading next, and why this invisible battle in the sky might shape the next century. What Iran has done is more than a technical maneuver. It's a symbol of a changing world order. For the first time in decades, nations are seriously questioning the dominance of US-controlled infrastructure, from satellites and payment networks to semiconductors and the internet itself. By embracing China's BeiDou, Iran has joined a growing movement of countries seeking technological sovereignty, the right to control their own digital foundations. And that's a trend that's accelerating everywhere. In Africa, Chinese firms are building 5G networks powered by BeiDou synchronization. In Southeast Asia, shipping lanes are now being mapped using Chinese satellite systems. Even in Europe, several countries are testing dual navigation receivers, capable of switching between GPS, Galileo, and BeiDou, just in case the world fully splits into two digital camps. This shift tells us something profound. Power in the 21st century isn't just about armies or oil. It's about who owns the systems that make the modern world run, who controls the timing signals, data cables, and algorithms that tie global trade and communication together. For Iran, this move represents digital independence from the West. For China, it's another step in building a technological empire that spans continents. And for the world, it's a wake-up call that the next great rivalry won't be fought over land or resources, but over invisible infrastructure that orbits miles above the Earth. So the next time you open Google Maps, track a package, or send a payment, remember this. Those simple actions rely on a web of satellites, and those satellites are now part of a global tug-of-war between competing visions of control. Iran's decision might seem small, but it's a preview of the future, a future where countries choose not just which alliance they belong to politically, but which digital universe they operate in. And as more nations make that choice, one question will define the decades ahead. Will the world find a way to stay connected? Or are we headed toward a divided sky where even our navigation systems can't agree on where we are? If you found this story insightful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it. Because understanding how invisible systems like GPS and BeiDou shape global power is the key to understanding the world we're heading into.